I recently posted a video in which I played outdoors under my old willow tree. I was playing an ambient soundscape and using Logic Pro 10 and only plugins that come with Logic Pro 10 to achieve the sound. What I'd like to do in today's video is show you how I got that sound. And by the way, if you haven't watched the video, I'd just encourage you to go and check it out. Get a good feel for what the soundscape actually, sounds like. All right, you're back? Great. I've got Logic open. I've got my project open, the actual audio project for the soundscape. First, let's take a listen to the actual guitar part. I used an EBow to achieve this. If you don't have an EBow, you could use a distorted lead sound, maybe with a volume pedal, to achieve a similar type of tonality. Check it out. This is just plain vanilla, straight from the guitar into the computer, into Logic. Okay, and if you look at the audio file, you'll see that that's pretty much what I'm doing for the whole soundscape. Just a very simple volume swell with single notes. Really, really, really simple. All right, so how did I get the soundscape? All right, the first thing I did was actually look through the existing Logic presets to see if I could find something that was somewhere kind of off in the direction. And I found a preset called Fifth Dimension. It's under, I believe, the experimental guitar category. So I kind of took it apart, reworked it, kind of reconfigured it and put it back together again. The first thing I did was create a track stack. So you may be familiar with that. So here's a track stack right here in Logic, and it's basically a folder that can contain other tracks, and you can actually apply effects to the outer layer, the folder, if you will, of the track stack and have it apply to everything inside. So I've got this track stack, and I've got two tracks or two streams of sound inside. One I've called Amp, and the other is called Pitch Shifter. So let's look at Amp first. And you'll see right here in the mixer, I've got several effects. The first one I'm not going to go into detail with, but it's just a noise gate. And that's just to knock down the noise level when I'm not actually playing a note. The second one is the pedals effect, and this allows you to create a pedal board. For additional options, I added the auto funk effect and a tube burner, a distortion. So I thought, I'm going to try a couple different versions of distortion and auto wah, or auto filtering, if you will. And I elected actually to leave them off, but I'll just mention that to you that if you wish, you can put in a whole pedal board full of effects. Next thing up is the actual amp model itself. And so this is the small tweed amp model fed into a tweed 4x10 speaker cabinet simulation. So let me turn this off. We'll listen to it and see what kind of difference it makes. Okay, so you can hear it's pushing it a little bit, a little more treble, maybe a little more high mids. The next thing I decided to do was add a little bit of channel EQ, and as I went through the entire line, I realized there was a lot of low end down in the 20 to 50 to 70 hertz range, and it was creating a lot of rumble. So I took that out. I also noted around 490 hertz, I had some resonant frequencies. I won't go through the line here, but so I pulled those back a little bit too. And the thing this does is just kind of smooth out the overall tone of the sound. So again, nothing spectacular, pretty subtle. You can hear it's not that different from the original. After that, I decided to add some compression to keep the sound from getting out of hand. So threshold -6, 2.2 to 1. Ratio, you can see the knee attack is fairly quick, release is a little slower, no makeup gain. And this just controls the amplitude a little bit of the signal. And you can see a little compression down here happening, this little purple. It's one of the cool things about Logic. If you have the out-of-the-box compressor, it will actually show you gain reduction right on your channel strip that's part of the mixer. So I like that. It's probably about 9 dB gain reduction. Okay, so there's my basic amp sound. The other thing I wanted to do was add some pitch shifting after the fifth dimension preset. And so I've got a few things going here in a second track, if you will, that is a bus track. So you can see here I've got the bus turned on. It's set to bus 2. I'm feeding about, I don't know. Yeah, it's about negative 8.2. So maybe about 50% of this signal is actually going to go through the pitch shifter. So let's take a brief look at that. I'm knocking out a lot of lows on this. I don't want a lot of lows for the pitch shifted sound. I've got the actual pitch shifter and I'm setting it to 7 steps above, which would be a perfect fifth. Okay, so you can hear that. So pretty cool. I've got the auto filter going a little bit. I'm not going to go through all these. This actually was directly from the fifth dimension preset, but it just adds a little bit of tonal filtering going on. Let me go ahead and throw that on there. You can listen to this. Can you hear that? That kind of bwamp, bwamp. And the last thing on the pitch shifter is another compressor. So we've got a couple different sets of compressors going. You can see a lot of gain reduction here. As the auto filter kind of cycles through, you can see the rate is every 2 bars for filtering. All right, so there's my amp, there's my pitch shifting. Now I need some ambience, and that's gonna actually occur on the outer part of the track stack. So you could call this the folder, if you will. And I've added a bunch of effects on the folder at the folder level. So the first thing again is another dang compressor. I'm using multiple compressors in different spots to smooth out the sound. All right, and that's great. It's still a little dry sounding, so let's add some delay. Here's Delay Designer, and I started with the Jungle Delay preset. That's a Delay Designer preset that adds delays at different pitches into the sound. I didn't really want those pitches, so what I did was I adjusted them to 7 steps above, that's the perfect fifth, an octave below, and a fifth below. So I actually like that a lot. You get the initial pitch shifted sound, and then you get a delay of alternate pitch shifting happening. So there's a lot of different pitches going on in a delayed fashion. The next thing I added was actually a stereo delay. I've got a little preset that I called Strymon Ice. It was I originally created to kind of be a little bit like the Strymon Timeline, one of the Ice presettings. And I just kind of modified that a little bit. You can see I've got, I've got some low cut, high cut going on, a little bit of groove, a lot of groove on the left side, a little bit of groove on the right side. The groove is at quarter note. We've got 750 milliseconds on the left, 250 on the right. You can see feedback on both sides, and I've also cross-fed the signal from both sides into each other. So they're not discrete stereo delays, they're kind of mixed in together. Yeah, that's kind of nice. I like that. It's got a longer tail on it in terms of the delay and the repeats. All right, next thing up is a space designer, and I'm using the 6.3 second warp preset pretty much as is. The only thing I did was adjust the dry and the wet settings to get a balance of the reverb that I wanted. And then I added a second space designer. And I used the 14-second drone preset. Can you tell I try to use presets when I can? I do. All right. Yeah. Lots of tail on that, lots of reverb and delay. And then I tweaked, I felt like I needed to tweak the EQ a little bit more. There was some mud right around 290 hertz. So I pulled that down just to clean it up. All right, that's my basic sound. The other thing I felt like I needed was a little bit of a bass drone. So I pulled in one of the keyboard synth presettings called random pulses and just set a drone, just a single note drone, and then added it in. So here's what that sounds like. There you have it. That's how I got the sound for last week's video. I would invite you to download this Logic project. What I'm going to do is include a link to it in the video description. Feel free to grab it and play around with it. I'll include all the presets. I'm going to take out the audio because that is going to be a track on my next album. But I'll go ahead and leave the random pulses drone in. And I would encourage you to download it. Record your own guitar track in the, you'll want to use the amp track here. Record that on the amp track and see what you get. And, you know, this is great exercise just to remind me that Logic Pro is extremely powerful in what it can do in regards to recording and also with its native sets of plugins. I love pedals. I love hardware amp modeling. I love all that stuff. But it's really good to remember that Logic can do a lot of it. Anyhow, I'll see you all on the next video.